This is the Skeptical Student Show, created as a part of Podcast Lab by India Film Project in association with Anchor by Spotify.
You can always listen to the episode on Fast Forward and follow the podcast to never miss new episodes. And while you're at it, don't forget to rate the podcast a 5-star.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the Skeptical Student Show. It has been a trend to go abroad and complete your studies. And according to a report, the number of Indian students opting for higher education abroad grew from 44,000 in 2016 to 770,000 in 2019. And it is only set to grow further to roughly 1.8 million by 2024. Allow me introduce you to my guest for today's episode who has been there and done that. A student at the Alma College of Michigan State in the United States and also the co-host of the Desi Crime podcast. Welcome, Aryaan.
Hi, Gavish. How do I pronounce your name? First, let me get that. So yeah, I could Americanize it and make it Gavish. I could make it really Indian, make it Gavish.
India mein to there's Gavish only. I mean, the mispronunciation is that.
I'll call you whatever you want me to call you, man.
It is Gavish with the choti ki matra.
See now that's really helpful. That's really helpful. Gavish, choti ki matra. That's how I want to approach it. Perfect.
Great.
So I'm Aryaan with A ki matra. So it's Aryaan.
Blast from the past segment.
Okay, so how about we kickstart this episode by hearing from you your own experience about how you went about going to study abroad, that too in the US. So that's a big deal.
So my path was very haphazard in sense that I was preparing for entrance exam my senior year of that'll be 11th and 12th grade. I was preparing for, going to Akash, which is a medical prep test school, and studying for KVPY, which is sort of a subsidiary within sort of an AIMS kind of exam, but it takes you to IISc. Anyway, I was studying for that. I was a PCMB student, but I had a early life crisis, which was at the age of, I don't know how old I was 17 probably, but in grade 12, middle of grade 12, I realized being behind a book and under a microscope for the rest of my life is not what I want to do. And I'm being pummeled into a hole which will force me to live a very certain kind of life, which I didn't want to live. And then moreover, the students I was surrounded by at Akash, which is again like many Fiji, Akash, I'm sure every student has heard of those institutions. The students around me that wasn't the environment I wanted to be in, where everything was learned from what was taught by the teacher. There was no learning, there was just memorizing. It was a very redundant education system. And so mid 12th, I made the decision to come to US, so go abroad at least, because I didn't know what I want to do in life, and I didn't want to force myself into a science college or a arts college. I wanted a college, an education where I could discover what I wanted to do. And that's the one advantage countries outside of India offer. So I started, contacting my teachers. I was the head boy, so I had a decent standing in my school. And so I had connections. And I started writing my applications. I sent applications to UK, Canada, America, and I got in wherever I applied. That wasn't a problem. And the problem was, which is a problem for most students, it's the money. That I come from sort of an Indian middle class family, and I needed a hefty scholarship to be able to afford any study abroad program. Luckily, it was a very last minute thing. In fact, I got all the acceptances. Once I got the acceptance, I relayed it to my mother and said, will you be able to afford it? Because they were not willing to have the conversation. I said, are you willing to afford it? And when they realized it was 30 lakh per year, yeah, I think that was a wake up call for them, and they said no. And I was lost. This is 2 months before my board exams, and I'm lost now, right? Because I haven't been preparing for my boards. I've been preparing for a very good application. Last minute, I get the scholarship, a full ride from the college I'm currently at. And yeah, long story short, I'm in US now.
Wow, that is impressive. I mean, I was assuming that you would have had a very planned journey wherein you planned everything from the scratch, but that was not the case. So that was surprising. And also, you rightly talked about the question of finance.
Problem pinpoints and seeking solutions segment.
I mean, for most of us, this has been a problem, whether we'll be able to afford education abroad or not. So, since you have certainly managed to do so through a scholarship, what can be the other ways of turning this question around, or what would be your advice to manage the finances?
So I have talked to so many aspiring international students at this point. So I remember I flew into US during COVID, right? And I thought, let's make a vlog. And I was entering the content space. This was around when I started the podcast. The podcast became famous. The YouTube vlog, not so much, but my vlog was international student traveling from US to India during COVID. Those kind of videos were trending back then. So I was jumping onto a trend, and I mean, that video did get, I think, 20,000 views or something, but I was connected by many students via that, right? They reached out to me via Instagram or Twitter, and this question comes up, which is finances. And my very, very simple, uncomplicated, God honest answer to this is if you cannot afford it, do not come. Do not take a loan to come to the US or any other country. If you need a loan, it's a no from my end. It's not worth indebting yourself. No college education is worth debt. Firstly, just the value of college is reducing now. I am at a college and I can tell you it's the opportunities that I've gotten have nothing to do. I could do them without a college. I'm building things on my own. Instead, use that money to start a business or travel, do something, invest it for your future. But do not take a loan. You'll be indebted to the bank, and then any risky decision in life, right? In your 20s, you're supposed to take risky decisions. Start a business that might fail. I started a podcast that could have failed, right? But if I was in debt, I would never have taken that decision because why would I? I remember, I mean, when I bought the mics for my podcast, right? It was an upfront 30,000 rupee cost. Would I have dared to spend 30,000 rupees of my savings that I earned while I was working on campus in US on mic equipment if I had to pay that on a debt? No, right? And so if you cannot afford it, do not go abroad. If you can afford it, come. If you have a huge scholarship, come. But I'm not going to suggest any workarounds or nonsense that career advisors give, like, oh, you can work on campus and earn the money. And no, you're here to study, not work in Starbucks. That's not why you go abroad, right? And so if you can't afford it, there are many decent opportunities in India that are comparable.
Wow, some life changing advices. And also, this makes me wonder, did you face any so called consultancies or career counselors in your journey to have come abroad?
No,
So, it is possible.
no, I realized they're fake very soon.
So, you knew that all along, or was there some sort of realization?
I would hope. I mean, my school did have a career guidance cell, but I had interacted with enough career guidance people to realize they're just running a business and they don't care about the students. I think I realized that at an early age. That's fake stuff. Don't go for SAT coaching. You can get enough free stuff. Don't spend too much money on these pundits, essentially, who are shaking very lucrative lies in front of you, masquerading as opportunities, but honestly, they're just things you could do yourself. Perhaps if you put in a bit more research, all these career guidance advisors have tie-ups with universities and they get a cut of your tuition. They're not there for you, they're there for the university. Why would you want to, So forget that. Forget that. That's a big no.
All right, be aware of these consultancies and also write your own SOPs, right?
Listen, if you don't write your own SOP and you get to UK or US, say you do, what are you going to do? You're going to live with an imposter syndrome your entire fucking life. You're going to know you're not worthy of being in that group of people who will use big words, who will know big philosophies, who will debate you, and then you'll feel inferior to all of them. Why would you want that? Because in India, the problem is we've, attributed so much prestige to colleges that we think that getting there is the end all be all. That's not life. That's 4 years of life. 3 years if you go to UK, 2 years if you drop out. It's a small chunk of life. Do not make it everything. It's a very small part of life.
Yes, certainly. I agree on that. And also, to ask another question, have you or someone you know ever tackled the problem of xenophobia? And if yes, how do you deal with that?
I think Indians need to look in a mirror before they make claims of xenophobia in other liberal democracies where we call each other slurs very commonly. Slurs like chaman, slurs like chamar. We discriminate against darker looking people. And I'm somebody who doesn't believe in a victim mentality. So there are discrimination all over the world. To make it the first question in your mind when you're coming to US, which is probably the most democratic and open country, fuck it. It doesn't matter. Have I experienced? I've experienced on two occasions. I've experienced racism. The first time I experienced it was on the streets of Chicago by a black person who said, "You immigrant, go back to your country."
Oh my god.
Now that man was cracked out on cocaine, cycled past me. He was high as a kite. Would I be insulted by somebody whose life is so sad? No. And then once in a restaurant where a white man was recording me on his phone or as a video, and I called the cops. The cops took care of him. And those are two incidents in 3 years. In India, I have seen, not experienced, way more bigotry. So just because it's a white brown dynamic doesn't make it any more worse or better. It's just, are there problems in the world? Yes. Just do not focus on xenophobia or racism. All those aren't problems that an upper middle class do. Because who's the person who's going to come to US? You're probably going to New York or one of these university towns. These are all very, very, very liberal places. There is more liberal nonsense here than there is racism. But is there racism in America? Of course. But it's not something that should, be on your mind while you're making this decision of going abroad. Not at all.
Okay, that would answer the question. And also to talk about the education system. You certainly made the shift because you didn't seem to fit well with the idea of having to rote learn your way through the education system in India. And that is something which differs in the education system abroad. So, was the transition difficult? I mean, to have transitioned from the Indian education system to the one abroad. I mean, I have been at Ashoka University, which is a liberal arts university, and it,
Oh, you're at Ashoka. Which year
it
are you
actually
in?
makes you work hard. I mean,
Which year?
I am a first year. Now I made a shift to Hindu College, Delhi University.
I'm from Shivnadar, Noida, if you know that school.
I've heard about it, but I left Ashoka. Like, I was there for a month
Why did you leave it?
because I got Hindu College in Delhi University.
Oh, do you? Damn. Oh, so wait, so you went to Ashoka.
Yeah.
Does Ashoka start before the Hindu? Ah, smart man.
Yes, because it's a private university, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well played, well played. No, no, no.
I got 100% aid, so no profit, no loss.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good move. Dude. I'm all for that. Go for the bag. No, that's good. But to answer your question, and yeah, Ashoka is modeled after sort of the American system a little more. Rote learning isn't my problem with India, with the Indian education system. I think most Indians identify wrong things as problems in the Indian education system. Has it been a difficult transition for me to US? Absolutely not. Simply because the rote learning is very useful here. I can memorize stuff way faster and it helps out in exams. My problem with the Indian education system, which is very particular to the Indian education system, especially CBSE, is the way you're forced to choose the streams you will be in for the rest of your life. A 14, 15, 16-year old shouldn't be forced shouldn't be pigeonholed into PCM, humanities, this and that, because they don't know shit. I don't know. I'm 20, 21. I don't know shit, right? 16-year-old me knows lesser shit than 21-year-old Aryaan. Imagine forcing somebody to learn science for the rest of their lives. And then there's that added societal pressure. And then there's the hierarchy of PCM and arts. And you know what? I was the creme of that hierarchy. I was a PCMB student. I had such a superiority complex back in high school that I am the best. You are students, you can right well get lost.
Really?
And that's a bad mentality to, yeah. And I was inculcated in that. Of course, I matured and I realized that that's wrong. But when you're inculcated in a system which creates that differences, where you're encouraged to be PCM over humanities or commerce. So yeah, I think that's the issue. Rote learning is not necessarily the issue. I think, of course, a combination of practice and rote is the ideal way. But again, we're never going to have the ideal system. I'm not going to cry about something that is not the essence of the problem. Is rote learning, is just learning via that method a problem? Yes. Is that the biggest problem? No. To me, the biggest problem is this, pigeonholing of students in perpetuity into a career that they never had a chance to think about because they're freaking kids. So yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I think our school was so bent toward not letting us take PCM with B because they were like, तुमसे होगा ही नहीं, तो या तो you take B or you take M.
No, they were right. मैंने गलती करी PCMB. Let me just put it out there for everyone. Don't take PCMB. Horrible, horrible mistake.
Yeah.
Too much. I was the only one in my batch to take PCMB. Big mistake. Big mistake.
I mean, I saved myself from making that mistake because
Yep.
I think the systematic stratification is just one part of the problem. And then there gets added another layer, which is the societal pressure to force kids into the stream of science.
Hmm?
And I mean, I have battled with that. I literally fought with my family to take humanities,
Hmm.
and then things changed. And also, there have been talks about discontinuing this system, but the NEP came, at least it was proposed in 2020, and nothing significant has changed. So, yes, that certainly persists as a problem. And now to talk about a recent comment, the Ukraine Russian conflict is the talk of the town these days.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had made a remark saying that Indian students go to small countries to study, especially medicine, and this results in hundreds of billions of rupees exiting the country. Although language is a problem, but still they are going. So, what would be your opinion about this?
Opinion about what? I mean, I haven't heard the speech, or I don't know the context, and I don't know what he was trying to say or to whom it was delivered. But I know for a fact I was in Africa last summer for 3 months, and I was working with doctors, and yeah, literally everybody was trained in Ukraine. All the doctors, all the African doctors in Sierra Leone I worked with. And I mean, I know for a fact that Russia and Ukraine have many Indian students. I and that would lead to some brain drain as is happening across the world. I mean, it shows you the state of it shows you a couple of things, I think. It number one shows you that going abroad has this prestige that Indians chase, that it doesn't matter if it's Ukraine or USA. Is that Sharma ji ka beta bahar gaya hai.
It just has to be abroad.
It just has to be abroad. One is that. And then the second is, I think it shows poorly on India for not being able to retain its students, for having, imagine 18-year-olds, because I despise this system because it forces, I mean, I get so many people texting me and they look at my Instagram or look at me podcasting or doing these things, and they go, I love listening to your podcast. I wish I was doing something like this, but I'm stuck in a medical school or law school. And of course, you're 19. At 19 or 18, you're training to become a doctor. Like, dude, take 2 years to yourself. This is what I'm doing with my younger brother. And I see, I'm very transparent. If I believe something, I'll let you know. And how I'm operating in my life and with people around me, I'll let you know. So, with my brother, I fought against my family. And of course, do you think my family was completely okay with the things I've done? No, right? But then they see success and they go, oh shit, we were probably wrong.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I can have two tips. One is don't give a fuck about what others think. It's a very good way of operating in life. Do make your own decisions, own your own failures. Hmm? Claim your own successes and own your own failures. So that also includes, which my generation needs to understand, to take accountability. Don't blame the world for your problems. You're not going to solve it. Take accountability. Your parents are this, your mom was that, your education system is. You can go on and on about that all day long. Is that fixing something except giving you the short term pleasure by crying? No. Hmm? So you have the internet, which is decentralized and free. You have a roof over you, you have an internet connection. Stop crying. At least stop crying. The second thing is, which is something I'm doing with my younger brother. He's in 12th now, just got into 12th. A year after graduating, I am funding his travels, forcing him to volunteer somewhere in the world, in Africa or someplace. Just travel. No college, no nothing. For 1 year, just travel. Not expensive travel. Your ass is going to wake up at 7 a.m. and help poor people in the world, but you're not going to go to college. You're going to meet people who know more than you about life. You're going to engage in experiences that teach you who you are before you try to understand the world around you. And that's something I would recommend to most students. Take a year to yourself. India में gap year क्या होता है? Gap year भी पढ़ाई. Gap year is also preparation, not to yourself. Arey bro, take a gap year for yourself.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. So those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and great thoughts, I must say. And I'm also hoping that the listeners would want to have a brother like you because what you're doing is great.
I hope my brother thinks so.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah, I know he does.
And to come back to the question, I think, doesn't it make all the more sense to go abroad and spend less, even if it's going into foreign exchange, when the private seats of medical colleges in India is even more expensive?
Yeah,
So why not?
I mean, private seats are very expensive. But listen, if you are dead set to become a doctor because the passion comes from within, I'm sure there are those people who at 18 know, 17 know what they want to do. I'm sure there are those people. The average kid is not that. And so, for the average kid, my suggestion would be to introspect and see if their motivations come from within or from what their school and their parents have been telling them. The second thing is just, yeah, I mean, if you're dead set and you find something cheaper in another country, go for it. You'll have beautiful experiences and meet new people, a different culture. Go.
Yes, I agree.
Response segment.
And to dive into the next segment of the show, wherein we discuss upon a response received from a listener. So I had put up this question on my story, and the question was, if brain drain is defined as the flight of human resource, is going abroad and studying justified? So there have been two responders, and Ishan says that
it's not brain drain if they study outside. I think that if they use the skills they have acquired from the Western countries and those institutes which are better from the ones in India, and they use those skills to work towards betterment of our country and create employment opportunities here, then it's not brain drain.
but on the other hand, Abhinav says that
no one chose to be born into this world, so you don't really have any obligation towards any entity, least of all towards your nation. So if you want to study abroad and you have the means, then yeah, go ahead, do it.
so. I would like to ask you, which view do you agree more with?
Put me right in the middle, which is, it's not that you don't owe any country anything, you don't owe anybody anything. That said, that's a philosophy to operate by at a cultural level, not true. This country that you've been born in is a culture which has shaped you into the person you are, given rise to the communities that exist around you. And you're privileged to be born in India because you could have been born in many other countries where, trust me, you wouldn't want to be born in. You're born in a secular democracy with its own problems. Jesus, do I know about those problems? But with its own share of problems. But you're still very, very, very privileged to be born in a country where you can say what you want, mostly, where you can be what you want, mostly. Is it as good as France or US? No. Is it better than most of Africa? Yeah. If you had to choose, if luck was, a factor, you wouldn't choose those countries because you'd probably end up a worse of material life and at an individual level. So that's where I come on that. But the second aspect would be to think it's immoral to not come back to India and work is, again, whoever that person who responded saying that needs to find better things to have a problem with, because truth be told, you can come to India and very well not be doing anything for India. You can be working for a multinational. And I would like to ask that person if he volunteers somewhere in India and is actually doing anything for his community around him. Because unless he isn't, to think that somebody can work in India and somehow that's good for India, except the income tax factor. You're probably working for a company with Chinese investors or American investors. So just stop, just because it looks better to be working in India than working in US, you could be doing more for India than if you were in US. I mean, I run a podcast highlighting crimes from the subcontinent while I'm studying in US. Does that would it be better if I was producing the podcast from India? No, I don't agree with that analysis by either one of those people.
Yeah, it's very narrow. When you said that you'd want to be in the middle, was that a diplomatic answer?
No, I mean, it wasn't diplomatic. It was, I agree that you don't owe anybody anything, and there's one life. You got to do what you want to do and what will bring you happiness. But I also understand that there's a contribution that being born in a country has. Every culture attributes something to you. So this binary way of thinking, I would never ever go, "Oh, it's only that or only that." It's usually a fine balance in between, not because of diplomacy, but because of
There's a lot of gray between black and white.
yeah. Sometimes there isn't even a black and white.
Could be. Could be the case. Okay, so very quickly, five things which you think the Indian universities lack.
I have not gone to an Indian university, so for me to comment on it would be unwise. I would say the one thing I'm sure that they do lack is travel opportunities and internship opportunities, because universities abroad have a lot of funding for you to travel to other places of the world. And in my opinion, firstly, I love traveling, but I love traveling because it makes me meet very different people, encounter different cultures with very different values, and I can't be judgmental of those if I am to coexist with those folks. So I think universities that encourage traveling and help fund traveling are a great boon for society, and I think those lack in India, and they're readily available in US at least. um, and internships. Yeah, again, but internships also tied to travel in some sense in terms of you going away to be able to work on a project that is not directly related to BA in X, BSc in Y, MBA this, BBA that. Sometimes you just got to do things that are separate from what you're studying at college.
All right, so just two things.
Again, I've not studied at an Indian university, so I'm not qualified to say what an Indian university lacks. I would merely be speculating.
All right, so yes, and I think I agree. And I think also traveling took a major hit after COVID, but things are looking good now.
I think if you want to do something, you'll figure it out. I think
Yes,
you could travel during COVID if you travel to the right place, or we'll have a million freaking excuses whenever you want them.
yes, that's true.
Moral of the episode.
And now, very quickly, five harsh realities of studying abroad or some harsh truths.
Oh, yeah. Costs. Anybody tells you it will cost, any counselor tells you it will cost X amount, multiplied by three at least. That's what it's going to cost you. Scholarships by when, if a college advertises itself, probably shouldn't go there. And if it advertises a scholarship, which says 70%, and you're all sucked in by that, it's probably 70% on tuition, which is not a lot because most of the money that you have to spend in US doesn't go on tuition, it goes on rent and boarding, the food that you eat, the place that you stay. Tuition is not the highest. So 70% is only on tuition. So watch out for those things. Never take a loan for a bachelor's degree. It's not worth it. Another harsh reality would be it's not easy to find on campus employment. Again, counselors will tout, oh yeah, once your son is there, वो तो पढ़ाई करो, काम कर लेगा, बहुत $10 per घंटा. That's all bullshit. It's not that easy to get a job, and even if you get a job, it's impossible to work 20 hours a week. You're a full-time student. 20 hours at a, working in a library, just doing nothing. Think of your health, go to the gym, do something better, live your life. You're not supposed to be, if you have the opportunity to live a better life, live a better life. Not everybody can afford to, live a life where they can go to a gym, have their own time, go out with friends, and instead you're there studying the entire day, then 20 hours at a working somewhere, not at a great place. Why did you come continents apart to do that? So I think I just say watch out for counselors, Salesmen are there for themselves, never for you. Find people who are there for you and are invested in your future, not their future.
Great. And the last question would be, is it really worth it after all to have come to abroad, leaving your home country behind and studying there?
Absolutely, 100%. Met some great people. I have a great job now. I've had several, I mean, my journey is unique, so I'm not going to sort of say that's the path that can be paved for everybody, nor should it be. But just for me, it's been one of the best decisions of my life to, come to a college that provides funding to travel abroad, research, work abroad, and then I've met people, and then I've landed a very good job in documentary, started a podcast, one of the best decisions of my life. But again, to each his own. To each his own.
Wow, that sounds very lucrative. Also, I forgot to ask, what is your major?
So I started off as a biology major because I was a
Medical
PCMB
student.
student. Yeah, I was a PCMB student, exactly. Became a psychology major. Now I'm a philosophy major. So quite the evolution now.
A 360 turn. That's great.
360 turn. Yeah. Let's hope I don't drop out.
Oh, I wish that doesn't happen. That is the advantage of a liberal arts institution. Really lets you venture.
It does. It does. That's the advantage.
Supplementary segment.
And as a part of the last segment of the podcast, where we give something back to our listeners to remember this episode by, and I would like to take advantage of this opportunity to ask you something from your side to recommend to the listeners. It can be a website, any article, any book, any video on YouTube which you think would help them make it easier for them to study abroad or even distantly related to it.
Distantly related to it. I think something that will help solidify their motivations to go abroad would be reading The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That's a book I recommend to many people. That book helps you realize what you want to do in life, actually, not what society wants you to do in life. And then it actually gives you workable tips on how to achieve those things. And that book is very appropriate for college age students. I think it's the most appropriate age group for that New York Times bestseller.
All right. Thank you so much. And now to bid you farewell, thank you so much, Aryaan, for agreeing to do this and taking out time. It was a wonderful conversation. And I actually loved how you kept in throwing little life changing advices after or in between every answer of yours.
That's how I roll, man. That's how I roll. I hope your listeners like that.
Yeah. I hope you had fun recording.
Yeah, it was great.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And if you think we missed upon a point, or if you think you would want to reach out, you can look me up on Instagram. I am called Gavish Raptor with GAVISH_RAPTOR. Aryan, how can the listeners reach out to you?
They can go to my Instagram or Twitter. Both of them are at Aryaan Misra. That's ARYAANMISRA. Or, I mean, they can just go to the Desi Crime account on Instagram, which is at Desi Crime, which is my podcast account.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. And don't forget to tune in for a fresh episode.
You were listening to the Skeptical Student Show by Gavish Raptor, created as a part of Podcast Lab by India Film Project in association with Anchor by Spotify.